Hello, my name is Barbara Leland, and I'm a certified holistic health coach in Huntington Beach, and I do the healthy eating classes here at Hoag Cancer Center. Today we're going to talk about burn baby burn and how we can cool down the heartburn, acid reflux, and GERD. So you know the feeling that you get when you've got indigestion, you've got the burning, and it's keeping you awake, and it's painful, and you're upset. So what is it? Is it acid reflux? Is it GERD? Is it heartburn? Well, heartburn or indigestion is actually the symptom of both acid reflux and GERD. So acid reflux occurs when your stomach acid backs up into the esophagus, and that irritates the tissue. But GERD is when it actually gets chronic and it's more severe and it can become problematic. So you want to make sure that your acid reflux gets handled before it goes into GERD. So what causes heartburn? We have a muscle at the bottom of our esophagus that actually it is the lower esophageal sphincter, and that's a very hard word for me to say. So from now on, I'm going to refer to it as LES. So what happens is that that LES becomes weak. What it's supposed to do, if you look at the little diagram, the way it's supposed to work is that it allows food to come into your stomach, it opens up, allows food to come into your stomach, and then it closes up, so that the acid that is digesting the food stays in your stomach to digest the food. When that muscle gets weak, it stays open, and the acid comes back up into your esophagus. So that's when you feel the reflux. But why does that happen? What are the factors that contribute to the weakening of this? There are some things that we may not have control over now. So these are things that have happened, and now we have to deal with it. So things such as chemotherapy. That can be very common if you're going through chemotherapy. You may get reflux. And what happens is the chemo drugs attack the rapidly dividing cells. And that's great. That's the way it's supposed to work for the cancer cells, because those are rapidly dividing cells. But it doesn't differentiate between those cells and other rapidly dividing cells. So there are rapidly dividing cells in the gastrointestinal tract. That can weaken the LES, and the stomach acid will flow back up into your esophagus instead of staying down where it's supposed to. But with proper care, this should heal after your chemotherapy has ended. So what you want to focus on is how to soothe that while you're going through chemotherapy so it doesn't become a chronic problem, and how you can be more comfortable, right? Another thing that happens is if you have radiation therapy, and if it's in the area of your esophagus, that can cause it to be inflamed, and that can cause heartburn from the radiation. You may not get this from the radiation therapy, and you may not get it from the chemotherapy either. But if you do get it from the radiation therapy, it typically begins around the 2nd or 3rd week of treatment, and then it should subside by the 4th or 6th week after treatment has ended. And then other things that we aren't really in control of are medications that we have to take because of situations that we have going on. And if they're taken regularly, it relaxes the LES, and if you take those medications on a regular basis, the LES will remain relaxed, so you're going to have a constant situation of reflux. So some examples, now some things we're not taking on a regular basis, hopefully, like aspirin or ibuprofen, muscle relaxers, sleeping pills, sedatives, antibiotics, and supplements. Some of those things we're not taking on a regular basis, but other things we are, like blood pressure medication, antidepressants, proton pump inhibitors. All those things can relax the LES and cause the acid reflux. So speaking of medication, before you take any medication, you have heartburn, you start reaching for something to resolve that. But before you take any medication, talk to your doctor, because some medications can interfere with cancer treatment. And then there's things that we can control, things that are in our power right now. Overeating. So this guy is really enjoying this pizza. And when a person overeats on a regular basis, the stomach swells, and that puts pressure on the LES. And then what happens is the LES loses its shape and it weakens. So it stays open, and you get the reflux. Smoking. So in so many ways, smoking is something you're just hurting your body so much by smoking. So toxins and chemicals, they damage the membranes of the LES, and that causes it to weaken. And then also, the smoking causes acidity in your stomach fluids, and that impacts the LES. And think of the fact that what's happening is the acid is coming up into your esophagus, right? The more acid you have, the more you're going to have that, okay? So smoking is a definite no-no. Alcohol, on a short-term basis, alcohol relaxes the muscles in the LES, and the stomach acid might flow upward. But on regular consumption of alcohol, that can keep it chronically open. So on a long-term basis, alcohol will contribute to the weakening of the LES. Now, on a short-term basis, you may notice this. Maybe you go out for dinner with some friends, you have company over, you make a dinner, maybe it's a little richer than you would normally eat on a regular basis. That's already a situation, right? Then you're having alcohol on top of it. So you've got the rich food and you've got the alcohol, and you go to bed and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? So the alcohol will really affect your LES's ability to close. And then high-fat foods, meats, fried foods, high-fat dairy products, these all have a relaxing effect on the LES. And when they're consumed on a regular basis, this can also weaken the muscle. So when we have high-fat foods, they also stay in the stomach longer. They're slower to digest. Meats, cheeses, eggs, dairy products, they take a lot longer to digest than fruits and vegetables, for example. So they spend more time in your stomach. That triggers your stomach to say, hey, I need to make more acid. There's more food still here. I got to get that handled. And so you have a situation where you have more acid in your stomach and your LES has been relaxed. So it's like a combo, and the result is indigestion. So even good fats. So let's say you're having a hamburger, a nice big, well, scratch nice, a big juicy hamburger with cheese and avocado, and maybe you put some mayonnaise on the bun, okay? That avocado is going to contribute to the effect that the high-fat foods have. But it's not the avocado's fault. If you had that same avocado, scratch the hamburger, scratch the cheese, scratch the mayo on a nice whole grain bread with some beautiful lettuce and tomato, for example, you're not going to have a situation where it's going to be hard to digest, it's going to be creating more stomach acid. No. But when you combine it with the other high-fat foods, that's when you can have a problem, even with the avocado or other good fats. So is there anything else that can cause heartburn? Yes. So when we have low digestive enzymes, then we can have acid reflux. And that's because your food is not getting broken down efficiently. So again, it's staying in your stomach longer than it should because the enzymes are not able to break it down. They're working harder. Your stomach acid has to work harder. So some of the different enzymes that we can have. Now, of course, we could go to the store and we can buy enzymes in a bottle, in a jar, you know, with little pills, of course. But we can also get them through our food. So things that break down fats are avocado, kefir, kimchi, miso, and sauerkraut. And you're like, there's no way, I have reflux, I can't have sauerkraut or kimchi. It's too burning. But these things do help break down fats. So if you have a situation where you can't have the kimchi or sauerkraut, go for the avocado or the kefir. And it doesn't have to be milk kefir. It can, there are vegan kefirs if you're vegan, to help break down the fats. The kiwi, the papaya, pineapple, those all help break down proteins. So proteins and fats stay in your body longer. It's not just the high fat meats that stay in your system longer, but proteins, even lean proteins, take a longer amount of time to digest. Fruits and vegetables, they digest in 20 minutes. Meats digest in 8 hours. So there's a big difference there. And so the more you eat, if you have a high meat diet or a high protein diet, especially animal proteins, not so much with like vegetable proteins, you're going to have food staying in your system longer, and you have more chance for reflux because of that. Bananas and mango help to break down carbohydrates. Honey, raw, unfiltered, and organic, break down carbohydrates and proteins. And ginger helps the food move faster through the stomach, so it causes less buildup of acids. Okay, and all of these things, you know, you're not going to cook an avocado, right? You're not going to cook a papaya. The mango is raw. The honey is raw. The ginger is raw. Everything's raw. So when you cook foods, you do destroy the enzymes. You lower the enzymes. And why would we not have enough enzymes to begin with? Part of that is the fact the food that we're taking in has no enzymes available. So if you're eating a big salad with avocado and other things in it, a lot of raw vegetables, you're getting enzymes in that food. If you're eating lightly cooked vegetables, you know, steam your broccoli lightly, or your kale, all you have to do is wilt it. You don't really have to cook it. You're still going to maintain those enzymes. But once you cook things down, the enzymes get destroyed. And so everything here that we're talking about for enzymes, to increase the enzymes, they're raw, okay? So what causes a lack of enzymes? Not just what we were just talking about, but also smoking, alcohol again, lack of exercise, stress, certain medications, low water consumption, and diseases of the pancreas, including diabetes, cancer, etc. But in red, I wrote down that the lack of enzymes in food. So what I was just saying about not eating enough raw or lightly cooked foods, that as we age, and I'm sorry to say this, but as we age, we have less enzymes that our body makes. And so it's really important that we eat plenty of raw or lightly cooked vegetables, okay, and fruits, and raw fruits. Another reason that you might have indigestion would be low stomach acid. And you're going to be like, what? But yes, low stomach acid can cause feelings of heartburn or indigestion also, because when you have low stomach acid, then your food is staying, your food is not digesting quickly, so it's staying in the system, so you're getting gassy, you're getting bloating and cramping, you're getting heartburn. So another, all these symptoms are, you know, dry skin and hair, asthma and allergies. You may or may not have low stomach acid, but you may have some of these and you're like, oh yeah, I have low stomach acid. Not necessarily. You'd have to check with your doctor to find out if you do have low stomach acid. But just so you know, it's not always that because you have too much acid in the stomach that you have heartburn. Now, what causes low stomach acid? Alcohol again, antacids. So what do antacids do? They lower the stomach acid. If you take antacids on a regular basis, and you know, quite a bit of them, they can lower your stomach acid to a point where it's too low. gastric bypass, out of balance gut bacteria. So remember we talked about the healthy gut and the good bacteria, the microbes, etc. So too much bad bacteria will outbalance the good bacteria, and you're going to have a problem in your system. It's going to affect so many different things in your body, and one of them is your stomach acid. Poor nutrition, like when you're lacking vitamins, iron, zinc, and B vitamins. Stress is a big one for low stomach acid, for high stomach acid, and for so many things in between. And smoking. So again, the food isn't broken down well when the acid levels are low, and that makes gas production, and that feels like heartburn. So make sure you know what's triggering your heartburn before you start taking antacids, okay? If you already have a situation where you have indigestion and then you add in the effects of cancer treatment, it's really like adding fuel to the fire, right? So if you have any questions while we're going along, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll get to them. So how do we fix it? How do we make things better in a natural way? Number one, quit smoking for so many reasons. And I know it's hard. Just do it. Just whatever it takes to quit smoking, do it, because you're killing yourself with those cigarettes. Change your relationship with food. So you want to stop eating junk food for, again, so many reasons: the microbes, the acid buildup, the amount of time it stays in your system. It's usually high fat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You want to maintain a healthy weight, because when your stomach is pressing on the when your stomach is pressing on the LES, it weakens the LES, as we said. And you want to eat smaller meals so that you don't have that pressure on the LES, just even if it's just for that evening. You don't want to have that pressure on the LES, which is going to cause it to weaken. It may strengthen the next day, but you don't want to have the heartburn that night. So remember, the GERD, or the acid reflux, and turns into GERD. So when you have indigestion once or twice a year, okay, you made a mistake, whatever. But when that becomes chronic and it goes to GERD, you're going to have a problem. And that's what you don't want. That's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid any indigestion, right? But if it happens once or twice a year, I'm not going to worry about it so much. But if it becomes chronic, you really need to worry about it. So you want to avoid trigger foods. And a good way to do this is to keep a journal of foods that you've eaten that have caused a problem. So let's say this day you've had whatever. You had a steak and some mashed potatoes with butter and some alcohol. You had some wine to go with that, and then you topped it all off with a big chocolate cake. Did you have heartburn that night? Probably. Even if you don't have reflux, you probably had heartburn. But write those things down, and then not everything on this list, and other things also, would cause everyone to have indigestion. So let's say I have that meal one night, and then the next night I have a salad and some side of rice or something, and then I have chocolate for dessert, a little chocolate bar. That chocolate may or may not trigger the indigestion, if chocolate's not an issue for me. But you see what I'm saying? So know what triggers your indigestion or your GERD or your reflux. Okay? And then you want to eat soothing foods, foods that aren't going to be a trigger for you. Oatmeal is great for absorbing acid. Other fibers do as well, other high fiber foods, but oatmeal is like the best one for absorbing acid. Bananas neutralize stomach acid, and it also coats the esophagus. So when you think about the acids coming up into the esophagus area, right? Not just up here, but in here. And you have this banana that's coating, you want to coat that esophagus. So even if there is acid there, that banana is going to help keep the esophagus from being irritated. And then other alkaline foods, melons, cauliflower, fennel, almonds, those are all alkaline, the opposite of acidic, right? And yogurt, especially low or non-fat, coats the esophagus as well. Now, usually I'm a fan of whole milk yogurts or whole milk. If you're going to have dairy products, I would rather they be least processed than more. But in this case, the full-fat yogurt or dairy product of whatever may relax the LES more, and that's the opposite of what you want. So let's say, this is great for breakfast, right? Oatmeal, bananas, yogurt. Oh, I can have a parfait, right, for breakfast. Usually in the morning, you probably don't have that much of a situation with reflux. Usually it seems that it comes later on in the evening, right? So think about having some time. You could have for dessert. You could have some yogurt, slice up some bananas, spread it with a little bit of honey, and some slivered almonds, if we remember back to our enzymes. And that's going to help absorb the acid. It's going to neutralize stomach acid. It's going to coat the esophagus. It's really going to help your situation, your indigestion. What role do probiotics, I have a question here. So what role do probiotics play in all of this? Well, remember that probiotics are feeding the good bacteria. They're actually creating the good bacteria. They're feeding the good bacteria. So the probiotics can help a lot with stomach acid. So yes, you do want to keep your probiotics. And one of the things we were talking about in the enzymes, I think it was the probiotic foods that were working on the fat. So that was the miso and the sauerkraut and the kimchi. Those are all probiotic foods, correct? So the fermentation is the probiotic part. So yes, probiotics are important. Is there a probiotic that does not have to be refrigerated to be effective? Well, there are probiotic foods that are fermented, but usually you can buy pills, right, that are probiotic that don't have to be refrigerated. You can do that. But usually if it's a food item, then usually you're going to need to have that refrigerated, yes. Okay, let's see. So we were talking about having some yogurt for dessert with a sprinkling of oatmeal, drizzle with honey, put on some bananas, maybe some blueberries for dessert, right? Don't save that just for breakfast. Maybe you won't want as many oats at night, but have more yogurt. And also, by the way, the yogurt does not have to be dairy, right? You can do non-dairy yogurt. You can do coconut milk yogurt. You can do almond milk yogurt. The problem is if you're buying it commercially, you need to watch your ingredients, because in order to thicken the yogurt to get it to the consistency that you're going to be happy with, they're going to be adding different things into the yogurt to get it to that right consistency. So there are yogurts, or you can make your own, but there are yogurts that you can get that are lower on the ingredient list. So just make sure you look at your ingredients when you're buying non-dairy, vegan, anything, right? Anything that's trying to be something that it isn't, they're going to be changing it to accommodate that. Make sense? They're going to be adding chemicals or other things into the food to make it to be more like what it's supposed to be replacing. So you have to be careful. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It can certainly be done. And like I said, you can make your own. But you just have to maybe pay more money for it. You have to know how to read your labels, okay? Or make your own. salad greens and other high water foods, because the water, remember when we don't have water, that is a situation. Those high water foods, they're going to help to dilute the stomach acid. So lots of raw vegetables, cucumber is great, salad greens, watermelon is fabulous. Those all help to dilute your stomach acid. There's something else you could have for dessert, is some watermelon. And then try soothing herbs and teas. So ginger tea with honey, we talked about ginger and honey and how that helps, the enzymes help the food processing. And it also, they reduce inflammation. Ginger helps to digest the food faster and reduces stomach acid. And honey helps to coat the esophagus and soothe the burning. And it also helps to digest the protein and the carbohydrates, right? Chamomile tea is calming. It's anti-inflammatory. It smells wonderful. It reduces stomach acid, so that's a great nighttime friend. Licorice, marshmallow root, and slippery elm. You can get all of these in a tea form. You can get them in pill form. You can get them in lozenges. How else can you get them? In powder. They all increase the mucus coating of the esophageal lining. And that helps it to not have the stomach acid irritating it so much, right? So I can really attest to the slippery elm, marshmallow root, and licorice. I haven't, yeah, licorice too. And fennel too, by the way, is really good for that. For digesting, licorice made me think of fennel, for digesting of the food. So if you haven't heard of these before, or you haven't tried them, they do work. Do try it, and it's very helpful. Well, that's kind of a segue. So the question is, best physical exercise to train LES or against reflux and GERD? So that was a good segue. You want to have a low impact exercise. So walking, light jogging, biking, swimming, those are all low impact. And then yoga. Yoga is important for helping with indigestion or reflux. Some poses are better than others. You might not want to do downward dog, especially if you have a larger middle section, because you're going to be pushing against that LES when you're folding over. So you want to have things that elevate your head. You can Google yoga for GERD or yoga for acid reflux or indigestion, any of those things, and you're going to get tons of results. Now, I have even seen some that say downward dog is a good pose for that, but I've seen more that say it isn't. So just do be careful which one you follow, and but yoga can really help with your indigestion, with strengthening your LES is what we're doing here. And then breathing exercises. Belly breathing, otherwise known as bellows breathing, is a very interesting process. So belly breathing is when you breathe in and you let your stomach expand. Now this is a hard one for a lot of women because, you know, we're always walking around with our stomachs in, right? But in this case, you want to let it out and you want to breathe into your stomach, not into your chest so much, but into your stomach, and let your stomach expand. And that will really help with the strengthening of the LES. Also, and if you've never tried doing it, it is kind of a funny thing because you inhale and exhale and you do it kind of fast, and you feel like, first of all, you feel like you shouldn't be doing that with your stomach. So do it alone and you'll feel better. But it is kind of a funny sensation. And then the rib cage expansion and resistance. See how she's laying down here and she's holding her ribs? She is pushing against. She's filling her ribs up and pushing against. And that's also a good breathing exercise for strengthening the LES. And you can do these exercises before you eat, and you can also do them 5 to 10 minutes after you eat. and that should help you. I have another question here. Is coffee a real no-no? That depends. Coffee can be very acidic, so that can cause more stomach acid. I know for a lot of people it is a trigger. Is it a trigger for you? I don't know. I mean, if we're talking about, let's just talk about indigestion and reflux, etc. Coffee can be acidic, so yes, it can cause you to have more acid. It depends on if it's a trigger for you, right? You do that chart and see if is that one of the things, and you can do it by elimination. Okay, so these 5 things I ate and drank caused me to have indigestion. Okay, so start taking those things out of your diet and then add it back in. And do you have that indigestion again? If yes, it's a trigger. You can get low acid coffee. I've definitely seen that. There's pluses and minuses, right? So it really depends on you. That's an individual situation. You want to avoid tight clothing because, again, you're putting pressure in that middle section. Remember doing this, laying on the bed and pulling your jeans on? So that can put pressure on your midsection. It can aggravate the acid reflux because it's pushing the stomach acid into your esophagus. So let's say you go to dinner, you're wearing your cutest jeans, and they're super tight because they're supposed to be, right? But you could have a problem with the acid reflux just because of what you're wearing. So avoid your tight clothing. And then sleep on an incline. And that helps keep your stomach acid from rising up into the esophagus. Often when you're laying down, you go to sleep and you're laying down, and that's really when you start to feel it, right? So sleeping on an incline can really help. And they sell these, this doesn't look like it, but they do sell these like wedges that you put under your sheets, I guess. I'm not sure, maybe you cover it. And then you put your pillow on top of that, and it puts you almost sitting up, but not quite. Kind of like the way these people are. And that will help also. You want to talk to your doctor because if you're having chemotherapy or radiation and you're having these symptoms, you don't want to start self-treating. You want to talk to your doctor. Your doctor will coordinate what's best for you. Try these. I would like it if you could try these natural remedies before you go to any medication situation. But you're going to know what works for you best. So, and your doctor will know what works with your treatment. So do talk to your doctor about this. But the good news is it can be healed. It can be healed. So just do the things that work for you. And if you find that you have questions about this as you go along, you can email me, but do talk to your doctor also. So that's it. Do we have any more questions? Not right now. So again, if you want to email me later because you thought of a question that you didn't think of at the time, or maybe you're watching this at a later time, you can email me at 2life-2health@hotmail.com. You can also visit me on my website at www.2life-2health.com. And I also do have past videos if you've missed some and you'd like to go back and revisit or revisit them on my website under videos, and you'll find them there. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I will see you next Thursday at 2. Doing something that will taste delicious and help your reflux. Okay, talk to you then. See you then. Bye-bye.